guys, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn, and we're going to cover some of the annoying lines, such as the Trompowski opening that Levi Rosman recommended in one of his videos. So for people who love to answer d4 with knight f6, going for either Bogo or Nimzo or King's Indian Grunfeld, Trompowski takes the fun out of both of these openings because now we get to react. And I don't recommend g6 because bishop can take. It's not that bad, honestly, but this is exactly what white wants. And e6 I also don't recommend because e4. And again, this is exactly what white wants. So we need a setup. And the simple setup against this is to strike with c5. This is my recommendation. Now, white has two main ideas. White can immediately double our pawns. This is typical Trompowski style. And I'm going to go against the popular g takes f move and recommend the slightly less popular but nevertheless solid e takes f. And the point is, even though we allow our opponent to create this IQP, isolated queen pawn, we actually have two bishops in a very active position that I believe we can put more pressure on white. So if he plays queen c1 or b3, we're going to play d5, castles, knight c6, bishop's going to go to e6, knight can go to e5, rooks are quite happy here. It doesn't even feel like our pawn is weak. Yes, white is solid, but at the same time passive. Activity and the two bishops are way more important in this position. So let's go back and talk about another try for white. A lot of the times after takes, white plays this move d5. This, I believe, is actually a mistake. We get to play f5, and after c4 or knight c3, the point is we're going to play g6 and castle and d6. And this structure, believe it or not, is actually not a Trompowski structure. It's a Benoni structure without the dark square bishop opponent, opposing our own bishop. I won many games using this idea. And then, of course, the idea is to get a6, b5 rolling. You could theoretically start with this move a6, a4, knight d7, rook b8, and prepare this. Or even better, I like to start with knight a6. Let's say queen d2, knight c7, a4, a6. Let's say he makes some random move. b5 is virtually unstoppable. If black gets to play b5 in the Benoni setups, black is better. So the logical move is a5 to stop us. Guess what? b5 anyways, rook takes, and the combo of the bishop and the rook makes white's position very, very uncomfortable. This is what I would recommend to you. And let's go back to this position after c5. If white rather decides not to take and play the main move d5, this is very important moment, guys. This is where we hit the bishop with knight to e4. Bishop has sort of two main ways to retreat. Gotham mentioned about h4, but I don't believe h4 is playable in this specific position. Bishop c1 is too passive. Bishop f4 is by far maybe the more common move. Here I'm going to recommend to you this very cool trick that you should remember based on a piece sacrifice. Queen b6, hitting the pawn. They usually play knight d2, hoping to trade the pair of knights. We take the pawn. You may wonder, what? You just gave up a knight. But now we use a little tactic. Check. Notice we're hitting the knight and the bishop. This is the tactic that a lot of strong players, even masters and higher, fall for all the time. And after queen d2, which is a natural move, queen takes, this position is very good. If they play f3, we can even trade. We're pawn up, offering the queen trade. And if they play e3, I love this move, g5. Because the problem for black is to develop his pieces. g5 does that with a huge tempo and a tactic. If he takes, notice with the two pieces loose like that, queen e5 simply wins the game. So therefore, he should not take and play maybe bishop g3, and we can insert this beautiful tempo on the rook. Black is a pawn up. White has a little bit of compensation, but no more than for equality. Black is clearly better here. So any questions so far?
No. Just all other lines to do for white besides that for move 3?
Yeah, let's go back and talk about other options for white. So if he plays something passive, I don't know, let's say e3 or c3, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I still prefer black. He's kind of playing like London system with this weird bishop g5 move.
Yeah.
So one possibility to sort of tickle him is to start with this and then queen b6 again. And again, he's got to play some moves that typically are not recommended here for white because b2 is way too weak. And finally, he can play after d5, knight e4, bishop c1 with the idea to drive the knight back. In this case, the simple solution is always the best, e6. If he plays f3, whoopsies, he's got some major tactical problems here. We pick up the rook using a puzzle rush type of tactic. So this is also no good for him. So he has to really react to this move somehow. Taken is, of course, great for us. We're going to take back with the pawn, establish this beautiful center. So typically what I see is they play this move c4. Black has a couple of options. Black can, of course, take and play this Benoni style position. What else can black play? Probably black could also play this move bishop to e7, although I would not recommend this move because of f3, and this check is not as powerful because it's not queen takes here tactic, and he kind of runs away. So I don't really recommend bishop e7. So we just need a useful move, like a wait-in move perhaps, and it could be just pawn takes, and this position is completely fine. Just play d6, basically playing like Benoni style. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Again, the point is f3 met by queen h4.
Mm-hmm. So what to do? What to do if white tries the h4 on move 3?
Yeah, let's talk about this move h4. So after c5, d5, knight e4. So the bishop just stays here and they play this move h4. So here are the questions. Question number one, do we leave the bishop there and take it at the at the right opportune moment? Do we take the bishop right away? So these are the two major questions we want to ask ourselves. Now, if we take the bishop right away, that's going to open up his h-file. I don't recommend you to do that. This is exactly what white player wants. He may know how to attack with this h-file. We may castle into the attack. That's going to be bad news. So we need what is called a wait-in move. Wait-in moves are what? d6, h6, or g6. Honestly, these are fine. All of these three are fine. But also, remember the good old queen b6 move? I think queen b6 is my recommendation. Now if he plays knight d2, okay, here we cannot take on b2 using the same tactic as earlier. So this is the only drawback of the move queen b6. Now the benefit of this is we get to play h6, knight takes e4, and we get a very interesting pawn sacrifice idea. If he takes on g5 with the knight, remember the b2 pawn, this is quite interesting position. We lost the a pawn, h pawn, we got the b pawn, we got the two bishops, but he's got this knight. I believe black is fine. The position is pretty complex, nevertheless. So if you want to sort of have a much simpler game and not deal with any of these complexities, after the move knight e4, h4, I would recommend to you perhaps just to wait and move d6. So they're going to probably play knight d2. Now we're going to take here, pawn takes. And the key idea is you want to attack the g-pawn as quickly as you can with e6. Now if he plays f4, the problem is he's going to lose the central pawn. This is not good news. If he takes on e6 first, that's kind of a concession. That gets to develop our bishop. And guess what? We don't have to commit the king to this side of the board. We can go quickly and castle this side, leave this pawn as a weakness. So that's not great either. So I think this move e6 is the real headache for him. Now he could insert this interesting idea g6 using a little tactics, right? I would recommend to take with the f pawn, of course, because you don't want to open up the rook and lose it. So he has a little bit of compensation, but honestly, two bishops, I don't see what the problem is. You can castle queenside. Position is quite easy to play for black. So that is my recommendation against this weird h4 pawn move. Any other Trompowski-like questions here?
No, thank you so much.
Yep, so remember guys, to meet Trompowski with strike in the center, I guess I could have also mentioned d takes c5, which is the least aggressive option out of all the options. Here black is doing absolutely great, and the point is the pawn on c5 you can win back pretty much right away. What is the easiest way to do that? Maybe just with the move e6. Just take it and you're completely fine. If he gets a little bit too ambitious with b4, well, that's actually bad news for white. We're going to use what is called the undermining technique. Because this rook is loose, he can never play a3. He'll have to play c3 to keep the pawn structure intact. But now this is a really cool idea. Takes, knight c6. Again, a3 is met by knight takes b4. It's not that easy to protect the b pawn. Let's say queen b3 is a logical way to protect that pawn. Now, guys, you may notice he is way behind in development. We're going to take advantage of that with this b6 push. If he takes, we take with check. And if he plays b5, we insert key intermezzo and we regain the pawn. So after b6, he is pretty much guaranteed to lose the pawn back. And we get it with dividends because we're going to get our pieces really rapidly deployed and take over the initiative. So this is the summary, how to face the GothamChess Trompowsky video for black.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.